In this tutorial, we'll create a simple memory game using Python and the Tkinter library. Here is a quick preview of what the game will look like. The memory game involves flipping over pairs of cards to find matching pairs. We'll use buttons as cards and assign random colors to each card. The instructions for the game are: click on buttons to reveal colors and try to find matching pairs to win the game. Here's a simple plan for building our game. Step 1. We start by getting everything ready, like setting up the game parameters and making pairs of colors that are shuffled. Step 2. We make the game board by creating a grid of buttons. Each button has a color hidden underneath, and we also make sure they can be flipped. Step 3. We make a way for players to reveal the colors by clicking on the buttons. Once a button is clicked, it shows its color, and you can't click it again. Step 4. We check if the colors of the two clicked buttons match. If they do, great! If not, we hide the colors again. We also check if the game is finished. Step 5. If the colors don't match, we reset them back to the hidden state after a short delay, so players can try again. So, what are we waiting for? Let's start coding. First, let's set up our development environment. Make sure you have Python installed on your system. We'll be using Tkinter, which is included in Python's standard library, so no additional installations are required. Start with an empty Python file. Import the necessary modules for our game: the random module for generating random numbers, the Tkinter module for creating a graphical user interface, and the message box submodule from Tkinter for displaying messages. Next, we'll create a class called MemoryGame to handle the game logic. In the init method of the class, set up the initial state of the game, such as the main window title, the list of colors for the cards, and shuffle the colors to randomize their order. We initialize an empty list to keep track of all the buttons in the game and initialize the empty list clicked _ buttons to keep track of the buttons that have been clicked by the player. Lastly, we call the create _ board method, which is responsible for creating the grid of buttons that make up the game board. Now, let's create the game board by generating a button as each card. The board consists of 4 rows and 4 columns. Here you can see the indices I and j that will be used in the code. Rows are horizontal sequences, running from left to right, while columns are vertical sequences, running from top to bottom. Use nested loops to iterate over the rows and columns of the board. We want it to be 4 times 4 size. For each position, create a button widget with a gray background and a specified width and height. The command parameter of the button widget specifies the function to be called when the button is clicked. Here lambda creates an anonymous function that takes 2 arguments, row and col. Row and col are the indices of the button in the grid, indicating which card was clicked. Self.flip is the function call that the lambda function will perform when it's executed. In other words, when the user presses a card, the flip method will be executed. Implement a method called flip within the MemoryGame class to handle flipping a card. This method will change the background color of the clicked button to reveal its color, disable the button to prevent further clicks, and add the button to a list of click buttons. We start by calculating the index of the clicked button in the buttons list based on its row and column indices. The formula index equals row times for plus col calculates the index assuming the grid is a 4 times for size. This gives the upper left card the index 0 and the lower right card the index 15. We then check 2 conditions to determine if the button should be flipped. The first condition ensures that the button has not already been flipped. If the background color of the button is not gray, it means the button is already flipped, so we return without doing anything. The second condition checks if 2 buttons have already been clicked and are awaiting validation. If 2 buttons are already clicked, we return without flipping any additional cards. If the above conditions are not met, it means the button is eligible for flipping. We set the background color of the button to the corresponding color from the colors list. Additionally, we disable the button to prevent further clicks. We add the index and color of the clicked button to the list called clicked_buttons to remember which buttons were clicked. After flipping a button, if there are 2 buttons in the clicked_buttons list, which indicates that 2 buttons have been clicked, we call the check_match method to check if the colors of the clicked buttons match. Therefore, implement a method called check_match within the memory game class to compare the colors of the clicked buttons. If the colors match, clear the list of click buttons. If all buttons are matched, display a congratulations message. Otherwise, reset the non-matching cards after a brief 1000 milliseconds, or in other words, 1 second, delay. Create a method called reset_tiles within the memory game class to reset the background color of non-matching cards back to gray and enable them for clicking again. This is done by going through every clicked button saved in the list through a for-in loop. Set the button's color back to gray and configure its state back to normal, meaning making it clickable again. Lastly, set the clicked_buttons list to an empty list again. Finally, let's create the main function. Create an instance of the memory game class with the main window as the master widget and start the Tkinter event loop. Click Run, and there you have it. Congratulations! You've successfully created a memory game in Python using Tkinter. Feel free to customize the game further by adding more features, such as a timer or a score counter. Now the only thing that is left is to find all the matching pairs. Great, there we have the pop-up message as well, just as we wanted. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed making this game, don't forget to show some love by smashing that like button, hitting subscribe for more game tutorials, and dropping your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time. Until then, I wish you all some bug-free coding.